Good afternoon, everyone. It's me, it's Marianne. I am taking over for Martin this week to help lighten his load since we're running a little behind on schedule, but such is life. Things never go according to plan. I thought I would take this time to talk about a book that I've been working on for the last 4 months or so that's been very helpful in my progress and everything. I think the last one of these that I did, I talked about Yuri on Ice, and I kind of gave a follow-up on the fact that I went to therapy and everything like that, and I realized that I went from July until we moved in October. There was some good information that I got, and I learned quite a bit, and that managed to get me to a place where I was able to set boundaries for myself, which is very important when you're dealing with someone who has depression, because you feel like you never do enough for that person, and then you end up overextending yourself, and then you end up resenting that person for taking things from you that you gave them, but things that you should have said no to in the first place, if that makes any sense. But ultimately, I realized that therapy, that sort of therapy, is not super helpful for me personally. It was integral to getting me to a position where I could help myself and start remembering how to take care of myself and protect myself, which is important in maintaining your mental health. But ultimately, long-term therapy is just not something that is very effective for me. I had a great amount of success when I was getting rape counseling because it was a more focused thing. It was one issue that was kind of bothering me, and all it took was, resolving that singular issue for other things to kind of click into place, whereas this is like a very strange, coagulated mess of everything. It's not just I was attacked, or it's not just, things are tough between Martin and I, or whatever. It wasn't that. It was just like this strange mixture of life bullshit that got in the way of being a healthy human being. And therapy, that sort of therapy, does not work for me. And so I didn't know what to do. So I ended up talking with a friend of mine named Rochelle, who she's the funniest fucking person. She's just so bubbly and ridiculous. It's difficult not to laugh whenever you hang out with her, because she's like a cartoon character. Like when you're in a movie and there's a plot twist, she's always the person who's like, oh, never saw it coming, and she's very sweet. And but she got a degree in English, and she writes a ton of fan fiction, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of fan fiction a year. And she would always tell me about, she was writing a book, and then she's writing fan fiction, and she's writing all this other stuff. And it was just so baffling to me, because I'm of a certain age, and especially when I started getting to my late 20s, I didn't think of myself as the kind of person who had time to write, or even just a writer. I focused on being a business-minded individual and a performer, not a writer. I used to write all the time, because I worked a shitty job in collections for a long time, for like a year and something, but I worked a shitty collections job, and it was the worst. And it was one of those things where you had 2 hours of work. It was either a 10-hour workday or a 2-hour workday. And on those 2-hour workdays, I would write fan fiction and send it home to myself and edit it and publish it and everything else. And I started going through my old stuff that I would write, because I have an old live journal tucked away secretly with all of my shame on it. And I realized like how wrong it was for me to think of myself as someone who didn't do that, because I used to be really into Tsubasa. I think I mentioned that before. I was really into Tsubasa, and I loved Phi and Kurogane, and I especially loved them together. They are like my OTP, one true pair, bays, whatever you want to fucking call it. But when I was working on that job, I started this fan fiction. It took me 3 years to finish it, and it ended up being like 250,000 words or something like that. And then the one that I wrote to deal with the trauma of being raped, I wrote an AU about the same thing happening to Phi and like him working through it, and that's how I managed to pull myself through that trauma. But that thing ended up being like almost 100,000 words, and there were so many one-shots and everything else. And it's just that I used to have all this time when I was working a full-time job and commuting an hour and a half each way every day. And why don't I have that time anymore? Because, you know, my work is much more sparse and focused at home, so there's no reason why I shouldn't have the time to do it. And I realized that I just completely lost the drive. Rochelle was taking this How to Write a Book in 10 Weeks class. She had signed up for it. And I ended up signing up for it too, because I just really wanted to get back into trying to write. And I figured that, you know, if you pay for a class, you're more likely to hold yourself accountable for the work that you do. And it definitely did. But like the beginning was so terrifying because I realized that I just had no ideas. Like, I mean, I have ideas. I have some ideas, but they were too convoluted, and I kept getting overwhelmed with all the details of those stories. But I wanted to write something simple, and like, I just couldn't come up with anything. And I realized that my life was so fucking colorless and like boring, and I don't know. It's just sad when you realize that you've allowed real life to overtake so much of who you are, that you don't think of yourself as like, you don't even think about fun anymore. And that was basically where I was at. I took the idea of a purpose-driven life too far, and I had just become a means to an end. Like, that's just how I thought of myself. So this class started, and I came up with a weird idea for a horror novel with a protagonist that has synesthesia. Like, it was a very vague idea. Synesthesia is like when one sense triggers another sense. So in my case, some people will see color and they will taste something, or they'll feel something. In my particular case, when I hear music, I see textures and patterns and colors and stuff like that. So I thought like it would be neat, because horror is all very sensory, if there was a book with a protagonist that had something like that. So I started with that premise, and from there it kind of snowballed into an exploration of the worst case scenario. What would happen if Martin had killed himself? And it was very illuminating to explore how life would keep moving forward after something like that were to happen. And it gave me the opportunity to, I guess, explain myself and why I did the things that I did. Because I get very angry. Martin withdraws a lot when he gets upset, and I do too, but mine is much more self-contained. But that being said, if somebody catches me at a bad time, I get angry. And writing the book, I guess, gave me the opportunity to be angry without having any repercussions, which was helpful. it also kind of gave me the opportunity to feel what I wanted to feel, but not as myself. I'm really not a super emotional person. I don't handle my own, I don't really talk about my feelings, and I just don't enjoy it. It's not very helpful to me. I like moving on with my life. I've been trying for several years and it's not worked, which is why I decided to do this. Projecting myself onto someone else and allowing them to experience what I've experienced it gives me a safe space. And it's no fucking wonder that I've been so unhappy for so long, because I basically have not had an area to really, I don't want to say be myself, because I'm not like the kind of person who lies or fakes for the sake of making people like me or anything like that, but it kind of allowed me to, I don't know, scream into a pillow without looking like an idiot. Now I can pretend I'm an artist. But having that space to scream was very helpful, and it kind of helped me see where I was wrong as well, in the way that I was reacting to and internalizing Martin's depression, because by breaking down someone's feelings so thoroughly, I could see all the layers of what was going on and try and pull back on things that weren't justified or weren't necessary, even though I didn't really need to justify my feelings, but we should endeavor to be the best people that we can be, and I wasn't. Writing the book also allowed me to communicate more effectively with Martin about what was wrong. He might not understand things coming from me, because I'm not entirely well-spoken when I get emotional. Having this mediator between the two of us that would sort of break down, what was going on, kind of gave us both the distance that we needed in order to evaluate both of our shortcomings. Once I wrote the book, once I finished it, which it is finished. I'm in my second draft right now, but when I finished it, I just started writing, and I've been writing almost every day, pretty much, and it's been great. It's fun to sort of have like a playground where you can go to every day and just sort of forget about everything in your own life for 2 fucking seconds, aside from the things that you want to, which, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I write, I project very heavily onto, just because I think it makes things more interesting to ground characters with real life experience, at least as close to real life experience as you can get. But it's still very freeing to just sort of not even have your own name anymore. Everything is different. Even if you are that character, you're not who you are when you're writing, which is fun. And the crazy thing is that my book ended up being about like 32,000 words, something like that, which was, it's pretty good. It's not great, but whatever. And the fan fiction that I wrote after the book, which I'm pretty sure I've been working on for just about as long, has already surpassed it, which is ridiculous. I'm glad that I finally got back in touch with something that I had told myself I couldn't really do anymore, because I was too weighed down by responsibilities. It's important that we keep our priorities where they are and, that we focus on the important things in life. But doing it every minute of every day is exhausting. I mean, when I was focusing on work instead of dealing with the stuff that I should have been, I was working, a lot of times 8 to 12 hours, 7 days a week. And I would wake up some of the worst days I'd wake up at 6 and I'd work until midnight, and I'd have to, drive back and forth everywhere and everything else. But you have to, when stuff like that happens, you really have to take a step back and ask yourself why. I mean, I know some of us don't have the luxury of taking time off, but saying no to more things is a very important skill to have. And knowing when to say no is just as important. And I wish I had remembered that, because people told me it over and over again and I didn't really listen. And now I'm tired. Something else that writing has really allowed me to do is get back in touch with fandom, which I really missed, because I grew up in a desert town, I've mentioned before, middle of nowhere. Took me 15 minutes to get to the nearest town area, and I had quite a few friends at school, but getting to see them was impossible without a car. So going on the internet and role-playing online or reading message boards or checking LiveJournal or communities or whatever was really, how I grew up and how I socialized and how I met so many people. And it was sad realizing that I didn't have any sense of community anymore. I mean, I have plenty of friends now, but a lot of them are actors, and that kind of comes with its own strange politics. But now that I kind of identified, the fact that I needed friends outside of my own circle, or even interactions with people outside of the folks that I had gotten to know and befriended here, once I realized that, that's when things started getting a lot better. And that's part of the reason why I love Yuri on Ice so much, which, I went on at great length before as to why the show itself, why I love the show itself. But loving something so popular that it's easy to start a conversation with anyone in a certain demographic and just talk to people you don't even know about shit that you love. It makes you feel a lot more welcome on the planet. It makes you feel like, you have more friends than you kind of do, And for so long, I didn't know how to talk to a lot of the people that I know, because I basically disappeared off the face of the earth for a couple of years, and that kind of affects your ability to socialize. It's a muscle that you have to flex. And granted, there are friends that you can see and pick up right where you left off immediately. But for a lot of, I'm sure you all can relate, for a lot of people that we know, if you don't see them for a couple of months, you have that awkward small talk part of your conversations, and it's just so painful, and getting through it is the worst. And, keeping up a regular social calendar is the worst. It's necessary, but it's the worst. But the nice thing is that when I started watching Yuri on Ice, a lot of my friends did too, and we would just talk about that. And now I actually feel like I have the ability to go to them if I'm in emotional distress, because we have an active line of communication open. And, it's just nice waking up in the morning and getting text messages with random stupid Tumblr posts and random tweets with fan art or silly things that we find online. I don't know. It's just nice to have more people to laugh with, I guess. Anyway, I know this probably sounds kind of self-absorbed and rambly, but the reason why I'm talking about this is because I wanted to maybe give people a new option. When you're depressed, you kind of feel like if you don't follow this specific set of steps that you're doing something wrong, and that kind of feeds into the guilt and, you know, being upset all the time and everything else. But knowing it's important that you are open to new ideas. Obviously, you know, that was a big part of my healing process. But it's important that you're open to new ideas, but it's also important that you know yourself well enough to know what works. And for me, writing is a very big tool that I can use to kind of maintain my sanity. There are definitely days where I sit down at the computer and I start writing and I get like maybe a paragraph out and it's the fucking worst. But like going to that class and needing to do homework, and we had to write 3 pages every single day, and just having someone there to tell me that I had to get this done by a certain date really helped sort of break through this writer's block that I'd had for 10 fucking years. And now, you know, even on a bad day, I'll still write 800 to 1,000 words, and it's fucking great because, you know, it's fun, but it's fun that makes you still feel productive because it's creating something to share with other people. And, you know, who knows, maybe your fanfic will be the one that somebody wakes up to and there's a link in their text messages too, because someone was really excited to read it. I know there's a couple that I refresh every other day or so, being like, is there a new chapter? Ah! I don't feel as good as I did when I did the last video, but I figured that would happen when Yuri ended because I had something exciting to look forward to every week, and that kind of, you know, you go through a manic phase when you're really obsessed with something, and now that I kind of have to make my own fun, my day by day is a little more difficult to gauge, but consistently I do feel better, and it's easier to talk to people, and life just doesn't feel as pointless. I mean, ultimately, in my opinion, life is fucking pointless, but it's nice to find things to distract yourself with. At the very least, it's nice to find things that are not people screaming about the president or political stuff. That gets very overwhelming very fast. I hope that I made some semblance of sense. I hope that if you write fanfic or other stuff, because of this video, that you link it to me, because I would like to read it. And I hope that if you're not having a good day, tomorrow is better. And I hope that if you are having a good day, that it is a great day. It becomes a great day. Let's go with that. Thanks for listening, and take care.